Hey everybody, welcome to Jacob's Quest, and tonight I just got back from watching the brand new Superman film from James Gunn, and the first entry, I guess, movie-wise, in the new DC universe, and yeah, I gotta say right now, this is the best Superman movie that we've ever had. That's what it is. Yeah, even the old ones, and look, I appreciate what those old ones did. And I think as far as if you need an origin story for Superman, then yeah, go watch those old ones. But if you want to really get the tone of like what Superman comic books are and have been for, you know, at least since, you know, past the first crisis, right? Like at least since modern age Superman comics have started, you know, back in the 80s to now. If you want a sense of what that Superman is and what he actually has been in the comics for a long time, this is the movie. This is what Superman is. The world that he lives in, the people that he interacts with, like that's what this is. And wow, just wow. Okay, so first I'm gonna go into spoilers later. So right now this is my non-spoiler section, just so you guys know. But yeah, obviously I loved this. This is everything I've always wanted from the DC universe. Okay, like everything that the Marvel fans have been getting, and don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of those movies and everything. That's great. I was a DC fan first. Okay, like I've been reading DC comics for a long time now, and I just we were stuck with this darker Snyderverse version of things for so long. And I felt like, you know, I felt like I'm just watching my neighbors have really cool toys, and I get invited to go play with those toys at Marvel all the time, you know, and I'm just like, oh, this is cool, you guys, you Marvel fans, you got this awesome thing. And I'm sitting over here with what DC has been giving us for the last decade plus, and I'm just like, it's okay, it's not really what it's supposed to be, but okay. And it feels like for the first time, like, no, yeah, this is exactly how the comics feel like, you know? And I know that's not gonna, like, mesh well with everybody, okay? I think that's something that you might be seeing online, you know? Like, this movie's largely been getting positive reviews, but there is some pushback. Some people who preferred things the way that they used to be. Not even just Snyder stuff, but also people who preferred more of the Golden Age Superman, where it was a little bit less weird sometimes, you know? Like, this is a weird movie, okay? There's you know, without spoilers, there's let's say creatures and just sciencey sci-fi stuff and fantasy stuff, and it's all meshed together. You know, all these like weird genres are meshing together, and they all already exist in this world. And I think that's the other biggest thing about this, is that you walk into this movie, and I see where the Star Wars comparisons were coming from now. You walk into this movie and it definitely feels like a world that already exists. You know, like this is not the introduction of like, oh, things just now started becoming super, you know, like this is the first superhero and things are only just now beginning. It's like, no, this is the DC universe. Things have always kind of been this way, you know, and we're following Superman because he is still like the most significant one of these metahumans, these superheroes, and we're following that story. But this is not like a world that only just started when he showed up. Like DC universe has been going on for 100, you know, they say 300 years. Like metahumans have existed in this world, so their entire trajectory as the history of the human race has been different than our world, you know. So it's already different than Marvel, whereas Marvel started and it's like, yeah, I think like Captain America and Iron Man were like the first heroes ever, and only then did stuff start getting weird. Like, no, this universe has been weird. And so like seeing a giant monster or a portal or a weird mutant thing or a robot, like that's not so surprising, you know. It's like everyone just kind of like, oh yeah, that's happened. Yeah, it's like it's not like a groundbreaking thing to these people, because this is the reality they live in. Anyways, let's talk about the actual movie. Sorry, I'm still like in shock from the movie feeling the way that the comic books have felt. Okay, the actual movie itself. Okay, so first off, the casting was great. This is the best Lex Luthor we've ever had, and this is a great Superman. I would say you're gonna have to sit here and compare this Superman to a lot of other Supermen. You know, like as far as like how stoic is he? How, you know, does he do quips? Is he like funny at all? Is he goofy? Is he, you know, like when he's Clark Kent, does he do this? And admittedly, you don't get a lot of Clark Kent, as in you don't get a lot of him in the office where he has to put on the goofy, nerdy character of Clark Kent, but you do get a lot of Clark Kent when he's with Lois and they're in private, and when he's with his parents and they're in private. So you do get a lot of that Clark Kent. So when I've seen other reviewers say like you don't get a lot of Clark, what they mean is you don't get a lot of the dorky Clark that he has to put on that persona in front of his co-workers. You know, he has to like, oh, I'm just a bumbling guy who can't possibly be Superman. Like that's you know, you only get a little bit of that, you know. So I am hoping in the future we get more of the nerdy dorky Clark Kent, but we do get a lot of private moments Clark Kent where he's like at a farm and he's talking to his parents and like, oh, yeah, there you go, that's the Clark Kent, that's who he really is, you know. And so you do get a good mix of him and then turning into Superman when he needs to save someone and he needs to put on like the brave face that's going to keep everyone calm. I will say I think there's only one like really controversial thing that some traditional Superman fans are gonna like maybe have a hard time swallowing. It's a decision they made. I think it's definitely going to be a plot point later on, especially knowing that we are going to get a Supergirl movie later. I think that's a plot point that's definitely going to come back, because it feels like something that, you know, it was revealed as part of like a villainous plot, and so it was impactful in that way. But after that, it's kind of just dropped, and now it's just like a thing that like, okay, you made this decision about the lore of this version of the universe, and some people are not going to like that. You know, some people are going to hope that it was a lie and that it wasn't true, but they make it pretty clear that it was true. So, you know, we'll talk about that in the spoilers, but you know, I think that's going to be like really the only actual controversial thing here. Now, I'm going to say this also. If you're someone who walked into this movie wanting to hate it, obviously you're gonna find reasons to hate it, right? Like, it is corny, it is cheesy, it is a little campy, it's you know, it's really bright and colorful. Sometimes people make a lot of jokes, you know, and I'll also say it is not too jokey. Some people are saying like, oh, it's Guardians of the Galaxy Superman, but not really. Like, those moments happen occasionally, but they're not like, it's not constantly, right? Like, there's no Rocket Raccoon running around just talking shit the whole time. Like, that doesn't really happen, you know. You just get those moments every once in a while, and I would say they feel realistic. Like, yeah, people would probably joke around, like no one's gonna be serious this whole time while wacky shit is happening. So it felt right, you know. I do feel like he didn't go overboard with the quips, you know. This is not this is not Love and Thunder where everything just becomes a joke, you know. So I appreciated that. Also, you know, this is if you're not someone who knows a lot about DC, if you're, you know, you've never watched any of the animated series or anything like that, you're gonna meet some characters here, and they do not hold your hand as far as who these are supposed to be or what their powers are or what's even going on. Like, they kind of explain, like, this lady has nanobites, this guy can turn into any element, but you're not going to get like a whole background, you know. You're not going to like get explained like how they got their powers and you know, like, how did you end up here and doing this, and what is the limitations of your powers, and like you know, like, it doesn't become those characters' movies. They show up because they already exist. Like I said, like, this is the DC universe, it already exists already. And kind of like Star Wars, where, you know, you'll get an explanation as to what the Force is and what a Jedi is, but like, you know, they say the word Clone Wars and you're like, wait, what? You know, and it's just like a thing. Like, Clone Wars already happened, don't worry about it, we'll explain that later. But the Clone Wars happened, there was a war, and now the Empire's here. We'll explain that later, just know that it's here. You know, so it does feel like that a lot. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the plotting of this movie. I think the actual like it feels like separate things are happening, but once we get to the ending, when it, like the big actual reveal as to like what the motivations were and what the reasons were for having all this happen, it all kind of ties together into this like, oh, that's why he was doing this, and that's why this all actually does end up making sense. But anyways, just I'm gonna go into spoilers in a second, but just to say, I really enjoyed this movie. It's not perfect by any means, you know. I do think that there's definitely, you know, maybe there's more explanations you could have given. There's definitely some plot points where I'm like, okay, this was kind of weird and wacky for like no reason. I think maybe some of the Jimmy Olsen stuff was like, they made decisions about the Jimmy Olsen character where he's a little douchey, you know, where it's like, I kind of wish he wasn't that much of a douchey character. He's not too douchey, like you don't like outright hate him, but you almost hate him, you know, when you're like, he could be nicer, you know. But I guess he's not Superman, so there you go. But yeah, overall I'm left this movie wanting more, in a good way. When I say I want more, I mean like I want them to make a sequel now, and I want to watch that sequel, and then I want to watch the crossovers where these characters show up, and then I want to watch the sequels to those crossovers. I want that now, you know. And I feel like there are some people out there I've seen, like, they're disappointed that they didn't get enough of these moments. They didn't get enough of this, they didn't get enough of that, and they wanted more from this character, and they wanted more like explanations for this thing. And I understand where those complaints are coming from, but I guess you got to remember that this is Iron Man 1, right? Like, you have all these ideas of like what the Avengers can be and how these interactions with the other characters could be one day, but this is still the first movie, you know? So like, we're gonna look back on this once we have all those things, you know, once we have the Supergirl and the Batman and the Green Lanterns and the, you know, we have all this stuff interacting with each other, and we're gonna be like, oh yeah, it felt like this was all here the whole time, you know. But this is a Superman story, so you don't, you know, as much as you might want like, oh, I want more Clark and Jimmy Olsen hanging out, and I want more moments between, you know, Green Lantern and so I want to learn more about that. It's like, one day you will, you know, but like there's only so much story they can try to pack in here, and they packed a lot in here, you know. But I don't feel like it was ever too much. I don't feel like Superman was ever like overshadowed. This is still very much his story, you know. We do get some highlighted, like I think between the Justice Gang, they definitely made Mr. Terrific a more significant part than Green Lantern and Hot Girl. Hot Girl kind of got the short end of the stick. Like, she got a couple of, you know, quips and stuff, but like it was definitely like Mr. Terrific is the star of that group. Green Lantern is the funny comedic relief guy who's just gonna be an asshole the whole time. And then Hot Girl's, she's kind of just there, you know. Like, she's kind of just the, you know, she might talk shit back to Green Lantern a couple times, I guess, but she's definitely the one where it's like, okay, we can't, you know, there's only so much time we can dedicate to every character. So Hot Girl definitely got the short end. But I am glad she's still there, because if it was only two people, you can't really call it a gang, right? It would just be a duo, you know. So I guess you'd still need like a third person to be in that group. So that's cool. And I do like what they're setting up with that also, you know, and I'll get into that. Anyways, basically what I'm saying is, go watch this movie. It is absolutely worth it. It's not perfect, you know. I know it's getting like these crazy high Rotten Tomatoes scores. For me, it is a 9. It's a 9, maybe even a 9.5. Only because, with the context of it being, I'm a big fan of the DC comics. You know, I don't have some big reverence for the Christopher Reeve Superman. Like, I appreciate what they did. You know, I get it. That's Golden Age Superman. It's solid. Like, I get it. But my reverence for DC is literally in the comics, like the modern comics, you know, range from the late 90s all the way to today. Like, that's where my DC Universe love is, you know, in all that stuff that happened there. So some people are going to come into this with their love of DC being the Christopher Reeve movies or being the Snyder movies, you know, like you got the Snyder fans, right? Like that's what they know and that's what they love, you know. Other people are like, oh, I don't really read the comics, but you know, I read like a couple of graphic novels maybe. Like, so I guess what I'm saying is, like, from the perspective of someone who like the comic books from the late 90s to now, that's where I live. Like, this is what I wanted. This is what I've always wanted. You know, I think also if you're a fan of the 90s animated series, you're gonna find a lot of stuff you like here too. Like, this is, you know, because that was also fairly close to the way that the comics looked, right, and felt. So anyways, yeah, just I had a great time with this one. I already have tickets to see this 3 more times this weekend, you know, so in the future I'll probably see it even a couple more times after that. But yeah, pretty awesome. Anyways, I'm gonna go talk a little bit of spoilers. So here we go. Spoiler time. Okay, here we go. We're gonna talk some spoilers now. First, the big reveal, and this is still the thing I think is going to be the most controversial, is that, and this becomes a major plot point of Lex's plan. So, in an attempt to find things to turn society against Superman, Lex breaks into the Fortress of Solitude, and he manages to finish reading or listening to this recording of Jor-El and his mom, right? Because basically in this version what happened is that when the ship crash landed, the message was corrupted. So Superman's only ever heard the first part of this message where they say, like, you know, your classic, like, oh, you carry the hope of our people with you, and you know, we love you more than the suns and the stars, and you know, like we sent you here for a great purpose, you know. And so he's always used that as his inspiration to, you know, protect people and do great, right? And like, so like a lot of that was his self-motivation to be Superman. And what is revealed is that the rest of the message, once you like finish, you know, they had to like mess with it and try to uncorrupt it, right? Because the message was broken. The rest of the message was saying, oh, you should start leading these people and take over the place because you're going to be stronger, and these people are weak and they're confused, and you know, you can lord over them, and you can, you know, start creating children and have Kryptonian blood like be revived again on this planet Earth, and you know, the Kryptonians can thrive again, like. And so that's what it is. And they repeatedly tell you, like, different people that you as an audience are going to trust these characters when they say, like, yeah, Lex Luthor didn't mess with that message at all. That's not a lie. Jor-El actually said this, you know? So, yeah, in this version of the universe, when Jor-El and his wife send Superman to Earth, the goal, or the plan at least, was that he's going to end up taking over Earth and having a bunch of kids, and you know, in that way, like, Krypton will kind of be revived with these, you know, partial Kryptonian grandchildren and stuff, right? Like, that's the plan, I guess. Now, it is still unclear if the Kryptonians themselves were necessarily like a conquering race. They don't really explicitly say that. So this might have just been something that Jor-El and his wife came up with when the planet was dying, and so they said, oh, well, hey, you know, our people can live on through our son if he has a bunch of kids on this planet, and he's going to be so much stronger than them that he can just kind of take over the place, you know, like. And so it's unclear if, like, oh, was Krypton like militaristic? Were they conquering other planets? There has been at least a couple of instances where that was explored before, especially in, I think it's My Adventures with Superman, the animated series that's like the most current one. They kind of explore that, but a lot of that blame kind of gets laid at the feet of Brainiac that they have. So this feels like a plot point that's going to be taken on by the Supergirl movie, because, you know, again, spoilers. Supergirl is already here. He already knows Supergirl, and it turns out that Krypto belongs to Supergirl, and that's why he's so misbehaved, is that Supergirl does not train this dog at all. She's perfectly fine with him being just like the rough housing, like, you know, he's gonna chew on everything and attack everything, because she doesn't train him. She doesn't discipline the dog. She doesn't, like, you know, teach the dog to, like, hey, stop, calm down, sit down, like, stop chasing stuff, you know. So it actually, you know, that ending reveal kind of explains a lot as to why Krypto is so wild. It's like, oh, because this is not Clark's dog. He didn't spend years with this dog teaching it how to be good. Like, this is Kara's dog, so that makes sense. You know, she's kind of a mess, it seems like. But in any case, so this feels like a plot point that's going to carry on to the Supergirl movie. It feels like, you know, we're going to get a lot of those questions kind of answered. Like, was this standard practice for Kryptonians? Like, did they send their kids out to planets to conquer them? Or was this just an emergency thing that Jor-El came up with because, like, oh, our planet's going to die. All the Kryptonians are going to be gone. Try to go take over a planet and make more Kryptonians. Like, that's his plan, you know? So that feels like it's going to get explored. So I'm okay with it. I accept that it is a different thing. And in fact, if it does turn out that the Kryptonians themselves were more militaristic and they were conquering other planets, and like that was a normal practice, eventually, when this universe does its own General Zod, which you have to imagine it will, right? That's gonna, like, automatically just click and make more sense, right? Like, General Zod is not gonna be some outlier who is evil, right? It's gonna be more like, oh no, General Zod is the one who's acting the way Kryptonians have always acted, and Superman's the weird one, right? And to me, that kind of makes more sense. And I know some people are gonna hate this. Some people, like, you know, because again, you think of the Christopher Reeve movies, and if you bring your love of those movies with you into this one, you're like, no, but Jor-El, he's so inspiring. The speeches and the, you know, these people can be good. They only lack the light to lead them the way, you know, that whole thing, right? So I can see how that crowd would get a little upset at this plot point. But again, it's still developing. I'm sure it's gonna come back later, so we'll see where that goes. Speaking of seeing where things go, and I'm kind of jumping around here. So, Ultraman in this movie, it is exactly what everyone basically thought it was going to be. Ultraman, of course, it is revealed to be a clone of Superman, right? So on one hand, you know, we in the comics know that Ultraman is traditionally from Earth 3, and he is the evil Superman with an evil Justice League of his own. Not the Legion of Doom, the Crime Syndicate, that's what they're called. And of course that's not the case here. He's not from a different universe. He is just a clone that Lex Luthor made. Now, what seems pretty clear is going to happen to me is that this is probably going to end up being Bizarro. Okay, because they even, you know, he even says like, oh, this clone, but he's imperfect, and he's probably even dumber than you are. And at the end of the movie, after their fight, he gets thrown into the black hole, and the black hole was created because Lex had been working on this pocket dimension that he had kept all his prisoners in. And by the way, when I say like, oh yeah, this movie is really weird and sci-fi and goofy, like, normal stuff like pocket dimensions and clones and like like, again, like, that's just the world these people live in. Like, that shit just happens. It's never not been a thing, you know, like, ever since the first mad scientist made a pocket dimension. Like, yeah, it just kind of happens sometimes. And if you remember, I think Peacemaker even had a pocket dimension in that show, so it makes sense. Like, this is the world that they're in. Anyways, so I'm pretty sure that clone Superman is not actually gone. Like, he got taken into the black hole, and maybe it's gonna lead him somewhere else, right? Because it was already from a pocket dimension, so I'm sure that black hole spat him out somewhere, and I'm sure we'll see him again one day, and he's gonna be all messed up looking, and he's Bizarro now, right? Like, he basically already is Bizarro, he just doesn't have the messed up face. So I'm sure that's going to end up being the case. And I know they already called him Ultraman, and they probably didn't want to do the multiverse stuff, because Marvel, of course, for the last like 5 years has been in the middle of their multiverse stuff, right? So I'm glad that DC didn't just jump right into that. And maybe they could have come up with like a different name to call him, only because you call him Ultraman, and you know that's probably not a multiverse thing, so like there's only so much it can be, so when everyone's guessing that, like, oh, let me guess, it's just a clone of Superman, like, yeah, it is. Of course it is. He's got the heat vision and everything, so yeah. I did like that they're basically playing a video game with this character. Like, they have all these mapped out combat responses to anything Superman could possibly do, and so they're giving out these commands of these very specific maneuvers. So this, like, kind of not really a thinking clone is just following combat commands that he's memorized, so it's kind of a cool sequence when they're fighting, and you have these group of people on monitors yelling out like XL 1A, like, just, yeah. It was just a cool way to have Lex Luthor be able to fight without without having to actually be there himself. And I will say that I can definitely see next time him getting in a suit of his own, because he had, I think they call them Raptors, he had all these like soldiers in suits that they get dispatched really easily, but it's clear like that's like the first stage of evolution of his Lex combat suit. So I'm sure next time we see Lex, he's absolutely going to get in a suit and he's going to try to fight himself. So yeah, that's basically it. I had a really, really fun time with this. I feel like I'm going to be thinking about it for the next like 24 hours until I go watch this movie again tomorrow night. I love so much of what it did, and like I said, it's not a perfect movie. I think there's going to be some weird things, like Jimmy Olsen, Jimmy Olsen was flirting with Lex's girlfriend, who's like the social media, selfie taker, and I do think like that whole plot line of like weirdly everyone wants Jimmy Olsen, and so he's kind of like this douchey guy who's like, oh, she's annoying, I'm gonna like, he gave him like really mean names on his phone, like mutant toes and weird feet and weird this, and I'm like, oh, he's kind of a douchebag, like, I don't and it's kind of funny, but at the same time I'm like, I kind of want Jimmy Olsen to be a little nicer. I don't know, it was like, I don't really like him that much. But anyways, this was a great movie, this was a great time. It's, like I said, it's a solid 9. It's a solid 9 for me. Like, I am very happy with how this turned out. Let me know what you guys think about Superman, and all your thoughts and opinions. Like, which movie did you like better than this one? Which one is this your favorite DC movie? Is this your favorite Superman movie? Did you hate this movie? I don't understand that. I've seen some people, some other reviewers on YouTube, like, outright say like, oh, this was trash, this was mid, this was I'm like, if you feel that way about this Superman movie, then I don't know what you want from a Superman movie. Like, this is what Superman is, and so if you wanted something else, then you wanted something that's not Superman. Like, you just want some other character, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later.